This is Mike Arrington with TechCrunch. I'm here with Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google. Hello, Eric.
Uh, Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for taking the time with me. We've had a few minutes to talk about some things, and you agreed very kindly to be on video with me to answer a few questions. The first one I'd love to ask is, what does search look like over the next 10 years, and what are the big challenges that your teams are eager to solve?
Well, we need to get from sort of text to meaning. Today we're pretty good about knowing roughly where you are and what your search history was, but often when you type something in, we really don't know how to completely disambiguate your answer. And with modern artificial intelligence technology, we're going to get better and better at getting you the right answer. Eventually, we want to get you exactly the right answer every time.
What Can we go into a little more detail on that, just in regards to maybe how the brain works and how you could better answer questions if you had sort of the ultimate limited resources?
First place, the best thing to do would be to have something that you could plug in directly into your brain, right?
And you're working on that product?
Well, I wish we were, but we don't exactly have all the medical clinics necessary to test brain insertion. But it would be nice if we knew exactly what you meant. But language is ambiguous. We don't really know, and so we have to sort of approximate as best we can. Eventually, we think we can get pretty close, though, and it's by knowing more about you, where you are, your history, what you use language, and how you express it, we think we can get you a much better answer.
Will search be in 10 years? Do you think search, obviously you're speculating wildly, but do you think search in 10 years will be closer to that ideal, or do you think that we're just getting started and we have 100 years to go before?
Well, we have many, many years to go because it's a race. Mm-hmm. I mean, if the amount of data were static and they weren't changing, it'd be relatively easy for us to say, oh, okay, we're done, right? And sort of complete the solution and know the answer to every question. But the internet is growing so quickly, and more importantly, the amount of data is exploding even today, that we're having trouble even keeping up with all of the new data formats, the sort of context and so forth. We're by far the largest such index, and we know this, and we think we have the best search algorithms, but there's always this query that we don't answer right. There's always another one left, and there's always new data coming in. I don't know who wins that race, but ultimately it means that pretty much everything that's happening will be available to you through Google almost instantaneously.
You talk about how search and mobile collide a little bit, and the explosion of. You were talking earlier about the number of mobile devices that are coming online in the world. And
well, I think
one of the
sort of amazing things about the world is that almost everybody's going to end up with a mobile phone during our lifetimes. And these are people who've never had any contact outside their village or what have you. We've never heard their voices. We often don't speak their languages, etc. And their worlds are going to be a lot better because they get access to the kind of information that we take for granted. So we operate under the assumption that pretty much everyone's going to have a mobile device and everyone's going to be asking questions all the time. And there'll be questions that are local in nature, like whether I should plant my crops, and there'll probably be questions about people like Britney Spears. We'll see every combination of it's just the way humans work. So on the one hand, we'll have all of that, and on the other hand, we hope in our data centers to have as much information as possible about what's happening everywhere in the world all the time. And we speculate a lot about what kind of information could we develop, what kind of questions could we answer. We've had a great success with flu trends, where we see an outburst, if you will, of flu-specific queries, and we say, well, hey, maybe there's an outbreak of the flu. This is going to be really important with the H1N1 virus coming in early September and perhaps becoming a significant pandemic.
Does that mean that mobile will become obviously Google's very focused on mobile today, very focused. You can't see them on camera. We have a couple of Android phones sitting here. They're actually my phones. But we become more focused over time on this? Has it become a real area of thinking about how you can serve the world?
We've been focusing on mobile for years, and every year we increase our investments, the products, and so forth quite significantly. Our mobile revenue is growing faster than our other businesses. Our mobile queries are growing much faster than our traditional query growth, which is also good. So all of that tells us that this is the year when mobile really takes off. It goes back to the fact that there are finally now powerful browsers, basically all derived from WebKit. The Safari browser, of course, is from WebKit. The Android browser, some of the other phones are now using WebKit-derived browsers, which is a fast mobile browser. With a fast mobile browser, you can begin to use the phone as a sophisticated browsing device.
And what phone do you use? What's your main phone?
I use a BlackBerry and I use an Android phone.
What's your go-to phone? Both? Do they both ring with Google Voice?
Everything rings with Google Voice.
Okay.
I'm a big Google Voice user.
But you like the keyboard on the BlackBerry?
Yeah, I actually like the keyboard a lot, but my Android has a keyboard too.
It does?
Yes, the G1.
You're using the G1?
Yes.
There's no one using the G1 anymore.
I like a keyboard.
But I bet you have some pretty cool advanced like G3s or whatever you're going to call the next ones.
Well, I'm not going to talk about new products, but there's a lot of new Android phones coming between now and Christmas. I learned that in the consumer products industry, Christmas is make it or break it. So everybody's lined up for a strong Christmas around Android.
If you're not going to talk about them, we're next to your office. Could we just go in there and poke around with the camera and see? I bet there's some interesting stuff in there. I guess the answer to that is no. The last question I'll ask here on video is I want to talk about the future of news because it's so relevant to what I do for a living. And you guys have, I think, almost involuntarily been in the middle of this revolution. And the death of print media, it might be a dramatic term, but the pain that print media is going through and the struggles with finding an online business model. You've gone on the record a lot with on this, but I love just sort of the surge in interest suddenly in subscription services. I'd love to know if you have any additional thoughts on advice on what news organizations can do to survive.
Well, with respect to non-online, the offline traditional print, we don't really know what to do. People are struggling with it. It's a change in business model. It's very, very difficult to operate, and our hearts go out to the problems that they're addressing. We're really focused on the online experience. And people are going to be consuming more and more media online, news in particular. We think they're going to consume it both with advertising supported as well as subscriptions. People who have a broad industry focus, a broad outlook, they want everybody to get, they're going to use ads. People who have a more narrow or specialized market, they may be able to use subscription services of one kind or other. People will subscribe for really high value content. We think both of those will do pretty well. We also think that the news reading model will change. That the traditional page 1, page 2, page 3 model will really be more of a skipping around model. You go from story to story. We'll help you figure out what is the most interesting story, and then you can go deep. You get interested in something, and then with the internet you can become the world's expert if you're willing to devote enough hours, and we'll help you read that. So the model, the traditional linear model, is replaced by an internet browsing model that ultimately I think will serve people better.
If you ran the New York Times, you may not answer this question, if you ran the New York Times today, would you try to find a way to charge for content, or would you try to find a way to make it entirely advertising supported?
I don't know how they're solving that problem. I know that they did that for a while and they were unhappy with their approach. I'm sure that they're always looking for new ones. I do know that because we have a business partner for the New York Times, that they're very interested in ad-supported models, and that we have been working for quite some time to try to improve that.
Okay. Eric, thanks very much for your time.
Okay, thanks.